Hello, Jennifer. How are you?
Hello, Jen Grace. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm happy that we're back for this third video of what we're doing here, which is just, helping people maybe feel seen or heard or any number of things that are happening right now. How are you? How are you feeling right now?
All right. I think I'm less, maybe the anxiety has just kind of settled into a reality. It's still there, but I don't think I feel the way I felt 2 weeks ago. I think I didn't have a lot of answers 2 weeks ago. I think as a business owner, we've gotten so much guidance now from the federal government and other like loan programs and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think we had that kind of clarity 2 weeks ago. And that was that kind of feeling of the bottom totally dropping out. Mm. For those of us who, have sort of a speaking and training predicated business. I know all of you can relate if you run that kind of business, and authors who are relying on book sales and keynotes and everything. So yeah, so I feel a bit more like we've got some place to at least land temporarily and regroup. And really also, I've been in kind of a really creative space, actually, like as long as that sort of food, shelter, water piece in the bottom of the Maslow hierarchy has kind of been semi-answered. I feel like I can kind of crawl up a little bit to what does community look like? What does belonging look like? What might I pivot into? What's needed? So I'm listening a lot. I'm doing a lot of calls. I'm like trying to just not have any pressure to have solutions, but just be responsive and tune into what's next. And yeah. I think that's my job right now. And that's how I'm doing like the self-care of taking the pressure off to have the answers, because we just can't. We can't right now. How about you, Jen?
I can echo much of what you said. I feel like I had a rough day on Monday. I'm not going to lie. I feel like I was optimistic and, oh, yay, like I'm fine. Things are great. And then Monday kind of hit me and I'm like, okay, things aren't fine. Oh. I need to recalibrate. But,
things aren't fine.
Yeah, it's not fun times for anyone. I'm just being honest and real. But I think what's great is that today's conversation, I'm super excited that we have our mutual friend, Fiona Dawson, with us. Who, yay. To just kind of talk about staying grounded, because I think to me, that's like the pivotal piece of all of this right now, is how do we stay grounded in something that doesn't even feel like a reality? It's like our new reality, right? So what are we doing? And I'm hoping that our conversation can help, shed some light for some other folks who might need some tips and tricks on that. So Fiona, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me. It's great to hang out with you.
Fiona sandwich. Yes. Tell us what's been going on, Fiona, for you. Please, everybody, with the nature of your business.
Yes.
And however much you want to share about what's happened and where you find yourself now.
Yeah. Well, I'm an open book, so I kind of overshare. And also I want to first debunk the myth of my accent, because I know people hear my voice and they think, oh, she's a British person. And I actually left the UK in 98 and I've lived in the States for 20 years now. So I lived in Houston for 11 and a half, and then I ended up in New York in 2011. And for the last decade, my career has been in public speaking and team building events that happen in person. And then also being a filmmaker, where you go off to locations and film, and then screen your films at film festivals. And so everything that I've been doing that actually paid the rent was all in person, and everything just stopped. So as an independent consultant, I've been one of those 1099 people that basically felt like I was, made unemployed immediately. Luckily, it seems that we might be getting some support as well. And so 2 weeks ago, I'd actually come back to Texas, a place that I consider home, to go to South by Southwest. And of course, that had been cancelled. And I had some great people to meet and some opportunities in Austin for developing the TV show that I'm working on. So I thought I'd come anyway. And then I was having breakfast with my friend in Lake Jackson, Texas, which is like an hour south of Houston. And I was meant to be driving to Austin for these meetings. And that's the day, I think it was labeled a pandemic. That's the day the Met got closed in New York. And I just had this sinking feeling in my gut, like, oh my God, this is going to go downhill fast. And I knew, I responded from my gut in a way that I had never done before. And like looking back from the shock of it, I was like, wow, I actually listened to my intuition for one of the first times in my life. And so I changed the flight, and I knew I had to get out of Brooklyn because my income was about to go zoop. And I have enough to get by for a few months, but certainly not a lot. And rents in Brooklyn are pretty high. Cost of living is high. Plus, I knew as a creative person and as a person that wanted to continue my projects through this, I knew that I just couldn't do that in Brooklyn in that environment. So changed my flight, threw my essentials into the car, and I drove 1,600 miles in 4 days from Brooklyn back down to Lake Jackson, Texas. Since then, I've had a wave of up and down emotions of extreme gratitude of my privilege that is sickening to that I actually have the physical ability to do that, to drive 1,600, that I have a car to do that, you know, that I have money in my bank account to fill the car with gas. Like, you know, I have all these things. So there's like this survivor's guilt almost of doing that. But then my friend who I'm staying with now, she owns a pharmacy. She's a frontline worker. She can't shut down. She's divorced with 2 kids. So I'm giving back to her by helping her with her kids who are now at home instead of school, and running errands and doing things to her so she can manage her business. So that's great. She now jokingly says that she has a wife as well as a boyfriend and an assistant. So now I'm a housewife, which is, you don't want Fiona Dawson to be your housewife. So that's how I'm giving back.
So you're evolving in Turbulent.
I'm evolving, and I'm meant to be writing a damn book, and I'm just like going through, which I am writing a damn book, but just going through all the stages, like, you know, we all are. It's like, okay, I've got it. I've got my shit together. I can do this. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to do it online. Like, I'm powerful. There's a whole new world. And then it's like, what the hell am I doing? So yeah, here I am. I'm back home in Texas.
I love it.
Yeah, trying not to drink all the wine.
Yeah, that's right. Try to stay in that productive zone. You were saying that like now is the time actually when things are so simplified to get that book done, and those special projects and those things that are might have felt so I don't even know if it's like indulgent or hard to focus on, or I don't know. We were just so distracted and so busy with sort of non-essential things that we now understand might have been very non-essential. Right. Because we're learning to live without a lot of things, and those things may not return.
Right. I was talking to a friend the other day, and in fact, this is a friend from college who I've known for 25 years and lives in Durham, North Carolina. And we were talking about how, now is the time to be able to do all these things. But then also I think it's important not to feel the pressure of like, oh, so now you have all this free time, so you should make your dreams come true, and you should write your book, and you should clean your closet, and you should Marie Kondo everything. Like, it could also actually be the time to do absolutely nothing and feel okay with that, and look inside, because otherwise I think we start putting the pressure, like the FOMO has changed. Right? Instead of the FOMO of being out in the world, going to all the cool stuff, now FOMO is like, well, you know, have you got your house organized? No, you're writing your book. Like, well, actually, just breathing every day and keeping a smile on your face is enough. Like, there's enough, right? Yeah. And there's incredible fear. I think it depends on what level of privilege you come from. And I think, you know, you're talking about, Jen, the basic needs, like, you know, do you have money to be able to feed yourself and the people that work for you? And, you know, are you going to lose your house? Are you going to, like, what are all these basic needs that you're going to lose? And in times of struggle, I've taken a lot of risk in my career and in my life, and emotionally, financially, spiritually, everything. And I've always said to myself, like, what is the absolute worst that can happen? Well, the absolute worst is that I can be homeless on the streets, which is very unlikely, hence the situation I'm in right now, where I had to put my worst case scenario into action and come move in with a friend in Texas. That, you know, there's the shame and embarrassment of that. But if I was homeless on the streets, then I guess I would just like write about it or make a video about it, or if I had access to a phone, or like, it's like you can keep going down levels of what that looks like. And I think that for me, 10 years ago, when I quit my job to make my dreams come true, one of the books and one of the things that inspired me to do that was reading Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now. So if we do anything, like go back to that, like reading Power of Now and realizing like now living in the present as much as possible. And hence that's the inspiration for the TV show that I'm in pre-production, post-production pilot series on. It's called Now with Fiona, and it's like living in the now. One of the quotes that inspired me recently, I'll quickly read to you, is true remembering is a kind of detonation inside of you, a flash flood that wipes out your past and reveals the greatest mystery of all, the mystery of the eternal now. And I felt like, there is a calling from the universe for those of us that want to hear it, or in a space to hear it, or have the capacity to just sit and listen. Like there is a calling to be in the now, and it's going to be interesting to see how people come out of this and react to this, and how we change the world together, and hopefully we can live more in the now and just exist.
What a great reading recommendation. I just put that in the comments for folks. If you haven't read that book, it's phenomenal. It blew my mind, and you're reminding me now I should go back to that, because somebody said we could be living right now in the midst of a miracle.
Yes.
And it was such an unexpected word to hear right now. And yet there is this creative like ferment happening right now, I think, for a lot of us because of crisis. And there's stores and reserves within us that we're discovering that we either hadn't known about or hadn't remembered about, right? That go back a long ways. There's resilience that we're pulling on. You all both have, I think, a tremendous mindfulness practice, I think, and many people who say, my God, I'm so glad I started that and I have that muscle now because I am now relying on it. It's giving me the ability to calm myself, to stay centered. And I just wanted to hear from both of you, like, what are those practices? And Jenn, too, I know that like you had a bad day Monday, like, how did you, I know for me, there's one thing I do is like, I just discovered weighted blankets. And so I've been lying on the floor with a weighted blanket. And it's like, wow, it feels great. It's like a giant swaddling. And like, it shows that actually like animals, which we are, like we love to have the pressure. It's so interesting. So anyway, but what about you all? Like, what have you found to be helpful? And I guess I'd say for our audience, if you don't have practice, is this the time to start? And like, how do you start to really up your self-care regimen if you aren't historically really good with that?
I think self-care means different things to different people. I feel like there's the term self-care and it's just so big and encompassing. And I think that it can be overwhelming to people. But I know for me, like my Monday was just not a good start to the week. I will just say that. So for me, like at one point I just walked away from my desk and I'm like, I just need to breathe. I just need to remind myself that I need to breathe right now. And I think just doing something as simple as that, like I do transcendental meditation, which I learned a couple of years ago when I was having a myriad of other problematic things happening in my life. And I swear at that point in my life, it was like 2018, probably, it helped me. Honestly, it felt like it helped me survive. And I think now just kind of like leaning back on that can be really valuable and helpful in a lot of ways. So that's my primary thing. And then also obviously exercising. I feel like I have a cat spirit or something where like wherever the sun is, I need to be where the sun is and I want to go to the sun. So for some reason that feels very calming in a lot of ways. So those are two very small, simple things of like finding the sun and being in it, even if it means like yesterday I went outside. I'm like, I'm just going to stand on my front steps for a few minutes and just absorb the sun. I need vitamin D in my body, right? Like I just need this. And those things like can really kind of snap me out of that cranky mood relatively quickly usually. But I know those are very kind of like almost surface level. They're really kind of not super deep, but I think that's helpful for people. It doesn't have to be super complicated.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I think a lot of people get very intimidated by meditation because you say, oh, I can't turn my brain off. I'm just not good at meditating. And one of the things, and I taught myself, because I think that's practically true for everybody. And I think it's how I resisted to meditate for so long. But what I do is when I meditate now and I catch myself thinking, and so I compliment my thoughts and I say, Fiona, you're so proactive. What a great job you're doing about thinking about your life and what you should be doing. Why don't you go take a seat over there? And I visualize like a psychiatrist's chair, like a chaise longue. And I tell my brain to go sit on the chair and shut up. Be quiet, Fiona. And then I imagine like my brain is like an electric plug that is going to click into a socket into heaven, into spirit, into the universe, and then focus on your breathing. So I know somebody's commented, Anne has commented, meditation saves lives, and I completely agree. I want to give a quick shout out to what I think saved me in this time. Like a year ago, my friend Erica introduced me to Hal Elrod's book. I hope lots of people are picking up his book, The Miracle Morning. And he has like 6 practices that you do before you start your day. There's an acronym called SAVERS. S is for silence, A is for affirmations, V for visualization, E for exercise, R for reading, and S for scribing, or writing, journaling. And so you do a practice of all of those before you start your day. And I started doing this about May last year, and it really changed the way I was able to calm myself and focus when I did feel frustrated or things felt out of control, or I was uncertain about how to proceed or how to organize my thoughts. And the meditation, I think, is like one of those central parts of it, when you start to just listen to your body, listen to your breath, and then have your spirit be able to connect to a greater one. And I kind of feel like my latest, greatest analogy was thinking about a big piece of granite, and you know how you can see the little marble pieces in the granite, the little individual pieces, but all those individual pieces are essentially locked together. And that's how I'm beginning to see humanity, where we're just one large connected big piece of granite, each with our individual differences and each our part to give, but we're all connected. And I think that, yes, this is an incredible opportunity for humanity to have like an enlightenment, to have a higher spiritual connection to ourselves and to the planet, and to progressing how the world is going to continue, if there's enough of us that choose to take and listen to that calling. And I believe there is, but I think we're lucky to be alive right now.
Yeah,
That's really lovely.
Yeah, I feel like so much of what you're saying, I feel like we tend to just overcomplicate things in general. And I think it's our opportunity just to be silent and listen and be of service and try to be as grateful and in gratitude as much as we can for the things that we have, which, is a lot of kind of what you were starting off by talking about, of just recognizing your privilege and what you are able to do and what you have. And I think if enough of us that are coming from that place and that standpoint collectively, I'm hopeful that we will have a better planet potentially at the maybe not at the end of this in the short term, but perhaps in the long run.
I hope so.
For real.
I hope so. For real. Prayers.
So what other things are we constituting as self-care, right? Because I feel like, to me, what I've already noticed, and I was saying this before we hit live, is that at 2:00 Eastern time today, I had already clocked like 35 hours of working, and it's like Wednesday in the middle of the week. So, and I still have 2.5 days to go. So it's like one of those things. It's so easy to be a workaholic in times where you're isolated from people, and Jenn, you and I were kind of talking about this, like our businesses are changing and morphing minute by minute, day by day. So you're constantly trying to get in front of the fire to put it out potentially, or come up with a plan B or a plan C or D, E, or F. So like, what are some, I'm curious, Jenn, if you have any, or Fiona, as we're all, because so many people, our audiences are very much business owners in a lot of ways. So, like, what are some other self-care type of things that aren't the usual go meditate on it? Because I feel like it could be hard for people right now to start a meditation practice if they didn't already have one. Not to say that you shouldn't try, because I truly feel like in so many ways it saved my sanity 2 years ago when I was going through something really rough. And it was the thing that just helped me sleep. Like it gives you more energy, I find, meditating. So I'm just curious if there's other things. And I know we were joking about like, drinking wine and stuff like that. And obviously, that's not quite it, but like, what are other things people can be doing right now to take care of themselves that may be unconventional? I'm curious what pops in either of your minds.
Who wants to go first, Jenn? Well, you go first.
I mean, I'll say, I know myself and I know how extroverted I am, and look in on your friendly neighborhood extrovert, make sure they're doing okay. People feeling a little hungry for company and for touch and all those things that we like. So I've been doing community calls, Jenn, this. I've been literally doing like daily or twice weekly now calls where it's come on, come off from my newsletter, and we're all coming on and talking about what's happening with the diversity and inclusion work we all specialize in and are passionate about. And I haven't had much of an agenda. I mean, to me, self-care is not having to be perfect in the way that I show up all the time and not having to me, that's huge. I mean, all of our challenges are going to be different, right? I'm just a very careful person because I care so much about wanting something to be precisely, wrapped up in a bow and deliver exactly what it says it's going to deliver, and that organicness, though, honestly, if I'm being honest, is I actually love not knowing where things are going to go. I love being organic and seeing how it develops and sort of, like jumping out into the crowd and having the crowd sort of pass you around and feel like the common humanity and how we hold each other up. So I've just done that, and it's been amazing to feel and let that energy come back to me and fill me up and remind me about the beauty in my community, the strength, the courage, the resilience, the heart, the fact that some of us do want to come out of this with a new vision for how that, for us, how the workplace has been articulated, which has been so, I think, harmful for all of us. We be able to shape this if we can get to that place of peace and then get into a creative place and get, start to push from some place of strength. And I know that's hard because we're coping with so many of the Maslow hierarchy right now, food, shelter, water, basic needs. But I think if we can see somehow through, the world really needs us to create something different coming out of this. And new voices are going to come forward and new vision and new builders. And that's what I'm trying to stay close to, because it's sort of like the opportunity. I think a lot of people that I have worked with, including you two, we've been waiting for this for a while. We've been waiting for like a 180-degree flip of the hierarchy, of the power structure, of the way we've done business. Like, this is like a huge upset. And in the upset is so much opportunity to shape what's next. And so my advice, I guess, is to let's calm ourselves enough so that we can recognize this moment for what it is. And it's full of potential, and it's full of potential acceleration for some of the things that we've wanted for a really long time. And we know the world needs, and we know that we're the messengers that need to make it happen, So if you think about it that way, to me, that kind of gives me a sense of purpose and grounds me in what I'm actually here to do. And then it leads me to celebrate the fact that many barriers are coming down right now, where we could get further, faster, and potentially have actually some more power right now, and power in great hands, because I know that the people, at least that I hang out with, have humanity in mind. We have, all that heart-centered leadership that we are so passionate and committed to. So I know whatever world we all create would be a better one. So I think that's to self-care, that's it's a strange thing to say because it sounds like a lot of work what I have put together. having daily calls with 70 people on and leading those calls and making sure everybody feels heard. And I'm answering questions or asking my own questions. It's work, but I feel so restored.
Yeah.
After that. So I might ask people listening to this, like, what is the work that you have always thought, gosh, if I could just do that all day, because that's where I live. Like, that is like my flow. And it might look super hard for somebody else, but for you, it may be just like breathing, go towards that, do that thing. And then like allow yourself to be creative. And I know we have a lot of guilt right now for being in places that we can be creative because our basic needs are being met.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we stop creating because of that guilt, then how are we then stepping into the opportunity of what's happening right now? The power of now, as you said.
Right.
Jenn, I want to chime in before Fiona, you share too. But what I find interesting, and so much of what you said is just so brilliant and so just resonates. But I think stepping into that flow, being creative and not being perfect is a huge takeaway. So for you, Jenn, like you and I decided on a whim that we were going to start doing, we're like, oh, let's just do a video. We want to talk to our people. And then we're like, oh, let's grab somebody else. And now we have like weeks of this lined up. And I will say, and anyone who knows either of us can attest to this, that if we had planned this, it wouldn't have happened because we would have overcomplicated it. We would have involved 10 different people. Our teams would have been like, what are you two doing? And yet right now, like, all we're doing is sending like a quick text message to say, hey, let's have this person. And then one of us reaches out and we schedule it and we go. And we don't have an agenda. We have a general idea once we get live or right before we go live to figure out what we might want to discuss. But I feel like there's something so beautiful about the imperfection of all of this. And we're in a time right now where you can do things and you don't have to be perfect, which I think is so incredibly beautiful, which is partly why I started my 30-day writing challenge. Normally, again, my typical very OCD-ish fashion, I would have a spreadsheet that has all of my tips mapped out. To 30, I would have different guests. I would have it all mapped out. And I just decided on a whim on a Tuesday that I was going to do it. And I have not planned anything. So today's tip, I don't know what it's going to be until I start talking. And I think that there's something beautiful about that. Doing it differently.
Especially for women, Jenn, I would just want to point this out. I think diverse talent in general, right, which is where I focus on is, let's just pick women for one, cisgender women, trans women, women who, identify in the LGBTQ community, which all of us do. Like the perfectionism is real and it's born out of how we have to show up as sort of 150% all the time, because we sense rightly that we're going to get less of a shot, right? That we're going to be criticized more, that we're going to be held to a certain standard, right? All those things we know are true. So the work on perfectionism is very deep for us and really super important when you're underrepresented and when you are from a marginalized identity or multiple identities. That want and survival mechanism of perfectionism is exhausting, and it was exhausting before, but now like this another silver lining where we can actually decide like this is not important anymore. Like I can just drop that because I'm just going to do what I do. I'm going to be appreciated for hopefully, my output and my value add. And I hope in this virtual world we have an opportunity to show up as just ourselves without a lot of those, those visual cues that in a traditional physical workplace anyway are triggers of bias and stereotypes, right? Which ends up keeping us down, right? We hear those over and over. We play small, we internalize it, we feel small, and it sets off like a chain reaction. So yeah, Fiona, I wondered what you think about in terms of perfectionism.
Yeah.
Like, how's that go?
I have no idea what you're talking about. No, and I wanted to say that you starting this show or what, I don't know what the label you have for it, but like
don't have one.
You don't need one. No, but it inspired me because like when I saw this, didn't I messaged you, Jenn Grace, like what platform are you using? Like she told me StreamYard. I'm like, okay, sign it up. And yet for me, yes, like I have held myself to ridiculous standards, I think most of my life, but particularly in the last 10 years when I've been trying to make my dreams come true, because, you know, I quit my job and it's Oprah Winfrey's fault because she was launching her own network and had a competition to win your own show. I didn't win and I decided, well, I'm going to do it anyway. And ever since, I've been on this journey of having this vision and very clear picture of where it is I want to be. And I think a lot of the layers and a lot of the work that I've had to do over the last decade is to slowly like get rid of that perfectionism. And so for me, that feeling of having to be perfect does feel like it's been released through this time.
So nice.
And so because inspired by the two of you yesterday for Transgender Day of Visibility, I just woke up yesterday morning and I thought, what am I doing? I should be like talking or interviewing to my trans friends online today. And that's what I did. And I made that my job, and no one financially paid me, but that was my job, was to try and give a platform or a voice for as many trans friends as I could. Right. And that's what I did. And then the other thing, like with hosting your own show, I think I have been so intimidated by the greats and by people that have their shows on large networks, and you know, and trying to not focus on the gap of where you are and where you want to be, and like trying to do the practice of your vision board, and like thoughts become things, and like feeling the emotional energy that you're going to have when you get there. Like, it's one thing to know that that's what you're meant to do, and then trying to put it into practice is so hard. But all of a sudden, all these layers have been taken away, where all these people that I felt intimidated by, all of a sudden, we're just all really equal. And it's strange because, you know, in the D&I world, we talk about equality all the time. Of course, everybody's equal. But subconsciously, we still feel these judgments, and we're not thinking of ourselves as equal. And it's like, okay, so Trevor Noah is doing his show from his living room, so why the hell am I not? You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I did filming last year. I'm in post-production for these episodes that are eventually going to shoot out. And of course, I've got to change the story now. But I had been holding myself to these high standards of perfection that financially are very hard to achieve and maintain and get there when you're trying to pitch and sell a TV show. And it's like, I'd been so intimidated by other people on YouTube that I never did it myself. And so now it's like, everything is stripped away, and it doesn't really matter whether 2, 3, 5 million people watch you or listen to you. It's just that we all have a valuable message to get out there, and everybody has the equal opportunity now. We've got the same tools to be able to just be ourselves and be authentic and be vulnerable and just be perfectly us. You know, just be the best. I now my day is, I would just want to be the best Fiona Dawson I can be, and that's good enough.
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
That's so good. I hope that's resonating with everybody who's listening, because and talk about self-care. I mean, the gentleness on ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, we realize, I think, in times like this, how hard we are on ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's coming into sharp relief. How much we push ourselves, how much we compete, how much we compare, how much we don't feel that enoughness.
Yeah.
And I always love saying, don't make perfect the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
It's something I think about, right? Don't make perfect the enemy of the good. And I'm always telling my team is so stressed right now because we're all perfectionists and we want to do things for each other, and we can't. We just can't. Like, we're managing 4 kids at home and, you know, trying to do our jobs like they used to be, but they're not the same. And we don't know it's just total disorientation. And I think what's left when we're disoriented is trusting in each other, you know, that you are enough, that your best is enough, and that I don't want any of my loved ones to be stressed out on my account right now, that I just want everyone to be practicing to speak for their needs and trust me that I will shape around that. And then, you know, some of us, it's hard to speak for our needs. I find that's my challenge. I don't even know my needs because I don't know, Jen, if you can relate to this. It's just, I know when you are so tough and resilient and you just get through it and you make it look like you got it out and people assume that you have it all figured out, it's actually really hard to kind of break through that and say, you know, Monday was a bad day, Jen. And you're like, I just had to, you know, have a moment. And showing that to the world is hard, but this is our work, and it's a work of vulnerability. I mean, really, it's Brene Brown's, you know, message, but we're living it. And And in the workplace, we're going to be able to be ourselves with each other, and we're going to learn about each other's lives in a totally different way. I mean, I don't know about all of you, but the intimacy that I'm having and the deeper level of connection and things I'm learning that I never knew, things I'm sharing that others didn't know. I mean, these are going to build like lasting and deeper relationships in which we can then be productive in really new ways. I mean, that's kind of the what's going to happen is that as we deepen, I think we get more productive with each other. I think we really start to work on what matters. I think we start to bring our gifts more unapologetically because we don't have as many filters up anymore. And that's the whole game. I mean, the problem with the world is filters. The problem is the constant maintenance of an image. Yeah. Because then we're actually not seeing the diversity of the world because so many of us are hiding who we really are. Mm-hmm. You know, and we're also not trusting each other with our truth. Mm-hmm. And so this is a huge opportunity for us to do all of those things and kind of never go back to what it was, you know?
Mm-hmm. So we'll never be the same.
No, and Jenn, something you just said kind of hit me, and I will say this publicly, like just this whole like vulnerability, right? So this perfectionist, and we're always trying to put out like this image, and I feel like my image has always been like, I get shit done. Like that is just what I am like known for. Like
it's not just your image, it's true, Jenn.
It is like, it's like ingrained in my being, like I just get shit done. And I make it look effortless. So
lucky you.
Yes, I can make it look easy on the outside. But what's interesting, as we're talking about this, I have decided to up the release date of my memoir, which was supposed to be September, and now I know that it has to get out now or as soon as it's done. It's still in progress. But I say this because that is the ultimate exposure of like, hey, everything's perfect here, but oh, by the way, everything beneath the surface is a complete and utter shit show. So it's kind of like whatever you just said made me think like, wow, actually now is a good time to put it out there because maybe people will be less judgy as a result of like knowing the truth, right? Like, I don't know, I'm feeling some kind of comfort in this.
I love that. Oh my gosh, everybody, Jenn's memoir, it's just wild. It's going to be, Jenn, so good right now. I think there's an openness to not being as judgy about a story as difficult as yours. And all the challenges you've overcome and the ways you've overcome them. And I know some of the story, but the story just keeps spooling on and on. But like, you know, I do think our imperfections can be celebrated and shared and appreciated in a new way right now. And I hope we can hold on to this. This is the miracle in this moment. Mm-hmm. You know, this is the good stuff that we're at. And like, we may look back at these times and think, oh, we've gone back to normal. And I miss that, you know, I miss that level of connection and vulnerability and honesty that we saw for a glimpse of each other, right? Let's not make it a glimpse.
Yeah, I think we have to make a concerted effort to not go back. Like, obviously, we need things to return to some level, some sense of normalcy, and for people not to be obviously sick and dying. But at the same time, how do we really keep that connection and intentionally keep that connection? And I think it's responsibility of people like us who are, you know, dropping the wall of perfection and just hitting live and hoping for the best, or, you know, anyone who's out there speaking to their communities and creating communal places to gather and all of those things. But yeah, I don't want to lose it either, because I'm finding it to be very, very, it just feels like a hug, or like you're Jenn with your weighted blanket, despite not actually having human interaction.
Don't knock it till you try it.
I know we're definitely getting to the top of our time limit here. Do either of you have any other, I don't know, I guess last parting words or things to, you know, share with anyone?
We're just getting some really nice comments.
I know, yeah.
I'm really glad everybody's jumping on and resonating with the conversation. And Jenn and I, Fiona, thank you for joining us. You're going to join a long line of amazing people that we can't wait to talk to about all this stuff.
I am very privileged and honored that I got invited to come hang out. There's one thing that I want to say, and maybe many other people have been saying the same thing, but I don't like the label social distancing, because everything to me is that we're actually being way more social. We're just being more creative in how we are social. Yes, it's physical distance, but I see so much more love and kindness and empathy and social now than I had before. Like, I've been working by myself at home, essentially social distance, for a long time. And now I feel like I've got many more people interacting with me, and I feel less alone working by myself, so it's kind of funny. And it also reminded me that, you know, I left England in 1998. I haven't lived in the same country as my family since then. And we are an incredibly tight family with very strong relationships. My brother's in New Zealand. My father and my sister are in the UK, and I'm in the States. And so we've been hugging like this for 2 decades. And so I love that humanity is being forced to like rethink our connection. So my hope is that when we are allowed outside, that we'll just be a little bit more kinder to each other in person and online as well. So.
Beautiful. Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Jen, Grace, see you later. See you next time.
Yes, we'll be back next week. I don't know what day. I think it might be Thursday. Yes, we'll be back at Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Yes, with a different guest and a different topic that we don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
That's the best part.
Take care of yourselves out there. Be healthy. Be safe.
You as well.